Hey y'all, Lisa here with our Georgia Suburban Homestead. Today we're going to be making mullein blossom oil. And I'll be talking about the properties of mullein and what you can do with it and what you shouldn't do with it. But this is something that I make every other year because mullein, which is also known as Verbascum thapsus, which is its scientific name, Verbascum thapsus, is a biennial. And what is a biennial? A biennial is a plant that only lives 2 seasons. In the first season, it puts on a rosette of leaves, and that's when you really want to harvest the leaves and dry them. And then the next year, it sends up a bloom spike with the little yellow blossoms. And those you pick and you use in olive oil. You steep them in olive oil for an ointment that has all sorts of benefits. So what does it look like? These are the blossoms. They have an interesting scent. I can't really call it a pleasing scent. It's floral. These are just picked this morning. And it's very easy to make your oil from this, okay? So we're going to pour some very expensive Moroccan olive oil on top of it. Now you don't have to use the expensive stuff, but do get pure olive oil and not this Bertinelli, whatever it's called, that's cut with other types of oil. Olive oil needs to be green, not yellow. Pure olive oil is dark green, okay? Now this will take about 2 weeks in this oil, and then we'll sift the flowers back out because we don't want them to decompose and break down in the oil. But we can use this directly on skin abrasions and in an ear for an earache. Or you can add beeswax to it or maybe a little shea butter for salve. It's very easy. And these are dried mullein leaves. Okay? Alright, so let's talk a little bit about mullein. There are more than 200 species of mullein in the United States, and so most of the people in the country are used to seeing it on roadsides and in ditches, and don't even realize that it's some powerful medicine. Once it goes to bloom, it produces these teeny little seeds that will spread everywhere, and so it's considered an invasive weed, but it's a very useful herb. When we say herb and weed, what do we mean? An herb is a leafy green plant that does not have a woody stem. That's an herb. Can herbs be weeds? Absolutely. Can weeds be herbs? Absolutely. So there seems to be some confusion out there on terminology, but it is an herbaceous biennial that is invasive. And the kind of the scary thing about the mullein seed is it's viable for 80 years. So it may not pop up this year, but 5 or 6 years, 10, 15 years down the road, all of a sudden, poof, you've got it in your yard. So in the first year, it gives us this rosette of fuzzy leaves, and we harvest the leaves. You can harvest the leaves in the second year, and I've done that this year because I tend to get bronchitis in the colder weather, and mullein really does help with the cough. It helps alleviate the cough when you use it as a tea. But if you do put it in a tea, it's got some fuzz on the leaves, so it's best to crush it up and put it in one of those reusable tea bags that's made of a very porous material that allows the medicine out and keeps that fuzz in, keeps it strained for you. So if you are going to steep it for tea, you use 2 teaspoons per 8 ounces of boiling water and steep it for 10 minutes. But do be aware it's got little hairs that you may find irritating, so you need to sift those hairs out. This mullein oil that we just made, essentially, in 2 weeks it'll be ready to start using, is really good for treating skin ailments and minor wounds and all sorts of plants. We're finding all sorts of the herbs that we grow are good for skin treatment. So there have actually been medical and scientific studies on mullein oil treatment of ear pain, and it's effective, but do talk to your doctor before you begin and let them know that you have mullein oil, which is sold commercially as well. In medical trials with children 5 to 18 years old, it was found to be extremely effective with the pain that comes with an ear infection. And it's only given a couple of drops per ear for treatment a couple of times a day, so it's very easy to use. It costs a lot less than antibiotics, so if you try it before you try the antibiotics and it takes care of the problem, you've saved money, and we all know that taking antibiotics takes a toll on your body over time. So how does it work? Why does it work? It's because the plant has polyphenols and saponins, which are the pain-relieving and anti-inflammatory components of the plant. It has flavonoids, which have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. And I'm going to try to say this word. I'm not very good with scientific words, so phenolphthalein, which has glycosides, which are also anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and antiviral. There have been scientific studies. Some of the scientific studies have shown us that the oils have antiviral and anti-herpes properties. So they help you fight against influenza A and herpes outbreaks. So, do you have to use the fresh flowers? No, you don't. You can pick the flowers. Mullein has a rather long blossoming season, so you can pick the flowers and dry some for later and use those to make the oil as well as using the fresh. Some people would argue if you dry a plant or an herb that it concentrates the medicine in the herb, but I think it really depends on the herb whether it's best fresh or dried. I tend to use fresh and then have some dried and reserved somewhere, then I forget whether they're there and find them years later, but that's beside the point. You can make the oil the way we just did, or you can use a double boiler and bring the oil up to a warm temperature over a double boiler. But then you have to steep the leaves for 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, strain them, and then you've got the oil ready to use immediately. It's the quicker method, but it's a little bit more work. Okay, so how long has mullein been in people's home apothecaries? And the answer to that is thousands of years, literally thousands of years. People have used it for issues that include cough, congestion, bronchitis, asthma, constipation, pain, inflammation, we've already discussed, migraine headaches, a little bit on your temple, sleep. Mullein has a calming effect and slightly sedative, can help you sleep, so the tea may relax you and put you to sleep. And it's also used for treatment of gout. By the late 1800s, people in Europe were using mullein tea to treat tuberculosis, and then the United States picked up that and started doing that. So every part of the mullein plant is usable. at different times of its life cycle. If you want to avoid drinking it because you don't want to strain it to avoid those hairs, you can make a tincture. And again, if you make a tincture, you're going to need an alcohol that is above 90 proof. When you look at the alcohol content, the proof content in the alcohol, the alcohol concentration is going to be half what the proof is. So if it's 80 proof, it's a concentration of 40% alcohol. I like to go a little higher to 90 if I can find it. If I can't, 80% vodka is what I use in my tinctures. And it's another thing when you soak it in the alcohol for at least 2 weeks and strain it out, and then you use it just a couple of drops at a time, whatever use, in your tea and in directly into your mouth or whatever. But if you'd rather tincture it, that's how to do it. Okay, so let's talk about the leaves a little bit. Dried leaves. And I recently gave some of these to one of my viewers on my live broadcasts, where I gave away some of my dried herbs, and she'll get my notes on mullein and how to use this. So she can either drink this and crumble it and drink it as a tea, or she can infuse it in oil, or make tincture from the leaves even. And a little bit of tincture goes a long way. Tinctures last for decades. Okay. Lab studies have shown that the antibacterial properties of mullein are effective for gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, and that includes Klebsiella pneumoniae, which is a type of pneumonia, E. coli, and Staphylococcus, which is a staph infection. Now, if you don't want to grow it or harvest it, wildcraft it, you can buy mullein, dried mullein, online. And in stores, it's readily available. So if you are buying online or from a store, you can buy it in several forms. You can buy it as a tea. Again, remember to filter that tea to get rid of those hairs. You can buy it as an extract, an oil, in powdered form, in a capsule, or as an elixir. The dried and natural forms of the leaf and the flower are both used to make balms, and as I showed you in previous videos, and you'll hear me say off and on, you mix it 1 part of the extract and oil to 1 part shea butter to 1 part or half of that of beeswax, and you stir that all together and let it cool. The amount of beeswax that you put into it will impact whether you've got a really stiff balm or a more creamy texture. So in a nutshell, that's mullein. Again, it's an herbaceous biennial. You can use every part of the plant. It's considered slightly sedative, so it may help you to sleep, help you to relax and sleep, helps you fight infections. It's an antioxidant. There's nothing bad to be said for mullein. The only adverse effects that some people who have an allergy to it will have skin irritation. So if you get some, put some on your skin and see if you break out. It's the only way to test that. I hope you've enjoyed what I've shown you today, and you know what to do. If you're not already part of the family, join the family. Give us a thumbs up, make a comment, ask a question. I'll answer your question. And until next time, see ya.